Hey, Kelly, how you doing?
I'm all right, David. What's happening, buddy?
Plenty, plenty on the dance floor. So
Plenty on
I'm
dance.
David Lipe. This
I'm
is
Kelly
Kelly
Palmer.
Palmer. We're here with Talk.dance, the world's most awesome dance podcast,
Most
as you will
awesome. I
discover.
agree. I agree. Oh man, we got a lot going on today. I'm super excited. Well, honestly, we probably should have recorded what we were just talking about, like for an hour, talking about what we're going to talk about on the show. I love it. We're going to talk about Halloween costumes, do's and don'ts. As you can see, David's dressed up something nice right now. I like it. I'm going to talk about a horror story of what not to do. It's going to be excellent. We got other things we're going to get into. David, you also put together a Spotify playlist.
I did.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that, all about Halloween.
All about Halloween. And then we're going to jump ship on Halloween a little bit. We got some other conversations. We're going to have like rumba. Does it start with a quick or does it start with a slow? Why are there two differences? We're going to talk about, I personally just did a same-sex competition. We're going to talk about that. And if we have time, we're going to get into some etiquette on floorcraft. So, super pumped.
Yes, yes, that is a lot. And I think you're going to find it a lot of fun. So Halloween is coming up.
It is.
And I don't know about you, Kelly, but like I end up going to at least several events that are done in costume, right?
Yeah.
And I see a lot of people showing up in a lot of really awesome costumes, and some of them are awesome costumes, but really not very practical
Yes.
for the dance floor. I don't. Do you see the same thing in Chicago?
Yes, I see the same thing everywhere, right? So the cool thing about dance is a lot of dance events have themed nights. So while we're talking about this for Halloween coming up, I've got a closet full of costumes. You know, you travel and it's like, oh, it's steampunk night, or it's Hollywood Roaring Twenties night, or oh, it's this or that, right? So you're constantly having dress up night anytime you go to an event, which is really awesome. So in my day, I've seen some good ones, and I've seen some bad ones, right? So why don't we talk about what you've got on there, Dave? Is this a costume that you know tried and true, or is this a costume that that is going to make its rounds and we're going to see? Like, talk to me about
This is one that I've had for a few years, and so I've worn it more than once. Um, and I got this at a one of these like medieval festivals,
it. Yeah, Renaissance Fair,
and
love them.
jousting and stuff like that. But I love this because I can wear this kind of like flowing shirt, and I've got a few of them, right? Because hey, I sweat when I dance, right? And so, which is a consideration, right?
Yeah,
If you're someone who needs to normally have a change of clothing when you dance, the same is probably going to be true at Halloween, right? So
for your
think
costume.
ahead about that.
Specifically so, because if you're buying a costume, I don't know what that stuff's made out of, but if you buy a costume, typically it's some sort of material that does not breathe. So it's even worse in a costume than it is in your normal clothes because you're breathing, like the fabric doesn't breathe at all. So you're
Right,
sweating even more.
right, right. So that that's a really a kind of an important consideration. First of all,
I
I
would I would think so.
one of the things I love about this as well is my arms are very free, right?
Yeah.
You can I'm gonna stand up too tall, but I can lift my arms like up nice and high if I'm doing like ballroom. But even
Hmm.
even for a lot of Latin dances, you need to kind of hold your frame, right?
Yeah, you gotta
And
have that mobility.
and if you're gonna lead, if you're a leader, if you're gonna lead turns and stuff, you need to lift your arms. And
I did a performance, and this is not even Halloween. This is not even a dance themed night. This was a performance when I was first starting out years ago. And it was a rueda, it was a casino rueda, and they wanted it to be cheeky, so they put us in big cards. right? So we had these cards. So like my arms were here. Like I couldn't do underarm turns. I couldn't do anything with my arms. I was like, this is the worst idea ever. So people were like patty caking and then running to the next partner, right?
Right.
So that was a bad idea to have that set up without the mobility of the arms.
So for those of you, by the way, who are not watching us in video, just consuming audio, what I'm wearing is a kind of long sleeve flowing, kind of like I think this was called an archer's shirt, right, from medieval times, and then I've got this vest. I think the term is a doublé or something like that. It's kind of like what swashbucklers would wear, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's because it's a vest, the arms are nice and free. It's not too hot. This one it's actually very nice material, so it's a little bit thick, but it's cotton, right? It's not plastic or anything like that. And so I have a few outfits that are similar in that sense. So I've got like a Dracula outfit. So it's got a cape, but again, it's very open.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I'm gonna talk about both of those things, right? Because I've had the flowing shirts before, I've had capes before, I've dressed up a lot, honestly. It's to the point now where I've dressed up so much for competitions and for work, right? Because I'm a teacher of dance. Then honestly, Halloween comes around and I don't usually dress up because I'm like, I've done it. I'm okay with that. So I actually don't dress up that much for Halloween. But let me talk to you about two instances that that both of those things you're talking about didn't work out so well for me, right? Let's talk about the flowing Victorian style arms. So I was at
tell me more.
Classic. I was at Tulip Classic this past year, actually, and one of the nights was steampunk. So I've got the vest, I got the goggles, like I'm feeling pretty awesome. And it's this really, really baggy Victorian style shirt, right? And I sweat a lot normally. And we did a lot of entries. We danced for 2 hours straight before the competition even started because the studio I was at had so many entries. We had to get all the entries in. So they brought the judges in, they brought us in, and we danced for 2 hours before everyone else came to the competition night. It was crazy. So I'm drenched. Meanwhile, I've got these wet curtains hanging off of my arm. Even an underarm turn is draping across my students' heads, their hair that they got done. They're like, I'm going to kill you. And I was just like, whatever, suck it up. I was not sympathetic at all until I went under my own arm in hustle and I damn near suffocated myself. It was horrible. So I would say if you have a long flowing, shirt, maybe not more than twice the size of your arm. Like maybe flowing a little bit, but not crazy flowing. And that same competition, actually, I dressed up as Zeus because it was like 5 days long and they had a different theme every night. I dressed up as Zeus for the Pantheons, right? And it had a little bit of a cape, and that cape later on, social dancing, I got stuck in, I got caught in. I was barely doing underarm turns anymore because at this point I'm like, this cape's killing me. So me personally, I would avoid too drapey of a shirt, right? And I would avoid capes. That being said, there's a lot of great costumes out there. So you have to adjust or you have to pick different costumes.
I actually got into the cape a little bit because I would use it at times. Like if you watch women in, especially like in ballroom dances where they've long flowing dresses and whatnot, and they'll often like augment what they're doing by they'll grab their long skirts and do beautiful things as they turn and stuff, and it can be so cool. And so I found myself like getting into the cape in that way, but I guess the dimensions of the cape were such that it wasn't a problem, but it potentially could be. So think about it at least, right? If you're considering a costume, is it something you're going to be comfortable with? Think about how well you're going to be able to move in it. Do yourself a favor and don't get one of these rubber masks.
Oh,
That might be really cool because you're going to, first of all, you're going to be killing yourself heat wise, right? These
for
do
sure.
not breathe, but you also do not have good visibility,
At
right?
all.
You're
Like you
moving
got
across,
nothing.
you're going to be bumping into people. You're going to be an accident waiting to happen.
You reminded me, I've done so many nights of dressing up. Like, it's insane. I don't even want to add them up. But back when I was a youngin' and we did a Lindy competition, we decided to go crazy. And I dressed up as, what did I dress up as? It was like, not Pooh Bear, but it was like pretty much a big bear. And the eye holes were the size of like quarters, maybe silver dollars. Like, that's it. And they were only right there. And so once you move your head, now all of a sudden you can't see anything. So I had to tell my partner, look, I'm going to leave my hand out. It's up to you to grab me because I can't see anything. And sure enough, halfway through the performance, the head shifted just enough to where I was blind for half of the performance. I was like, I just got to remember my steps. So I was waiting to watch video of me facing completely the wrong way, right? It's just, masks are a bad idea, period.
Bad idea. And if, certain costumes, you might have other things like big hands. Like I've got these these kind of cool like Frankenstein hands.
You
Bad
didn't tell
idea
me
for
you
me.
had
It's
props. This is
completely
amazing.
impractical.
You didn't tell me you had all these props. I love it. This is so awesome. Yeah, the big hands,
The
impractical.
big hands that
One thing that you can do, have some fun when you're shopping. This is what I like to do. I like to go shopping for costumes with dancers because then you can dance up and down the aisle and see if it works, right? So I'm in Chicago and we have a lot of big costume shops, but it's Halloween, so Halloween USA is popping up everywhere, right? So take a friend who dances, or the workers don't mind. Ask if you can twirl them or something. Like, they're not going to mind. They actually love it. I have not yet been to a place where I've tried dancing with the costumes on that they said no dancing. Like, they all loved it. They all wanted to take photos and all kinds of stuff. So
I want to go to the costume shop, even though I don't need a costume right now, just to do that. Right.
it's a lot of fun. You're like, oh man, this pirate seemed really great, but I keep knocking the hat off. Time to not get it.
Right. Right. Which brings me to footwear. If you have a costume that requires you to be like wearing boots or something like that, think twice, right? First of all, there's a lot of places where they're not going to allow you on the floor
Yep.
if you don't have proper dance shoes because they don't want you ruining their floor, right?
Yeah, right.
But it just might not be very comfortable for you either, right?
Yeah,
So,
I agree. You want to get the kind that I don't know what they're called, but they're like they're top covers, and then there's like maybe a strap underneath so it stays on your foot. Like, I like those. That way I can wear them with my ballroom shoes, or I can wear them with my street shoes. I can wear them with whatever outfit I need to, but I can wear the shoes that I want instead of whatever clodhoppers are coming with the costume.
right, right.
Yeah.
And then maybe lastly, hats or big, head
Oh,
of some
yeah.
kind, right? So think about that if you're going to be doing turns and stuff, if you're a follower and you're hoping to be led in underarm turns, even as a guy you might, but
Yeah.
or as a leader you might, but again, just think: is this going to be practical? Is this going to
Right.
be in the way of my having a great time dancing?
I've got just as many stories of success than I do of nightmares that I've lived through with costumes. But the issue is now, years later, I vividly remember the ones that were mistakes, right?
Right.
So one of the ones was a mistake was I thought it was so cool. I was the Count one year for Halloween. I thought it was great, and it was super easy. It was just like a very flimsy onesie I could put over. Dancing wise, like, it felt great. It had a cape, but only to my waist. It didn't get in my way. I thought I really knocked this out of the park. The issue was I never put the head on, right? So it's time to go to the studio where I was working at and have Halloween night. This head came out to my shoulders and around. Like, this is a huge, huge hit. And I instantly, as soon as I put it on, I went, well, this is a bad idea. But I'm neck down, I'm the count. So I can't be Kelly head up, right? So I got to be the count all night. So my arms never went above my shoulder. So it was a bad idea dance wise. Total hit costume, but a really bad idea dance wise.
Right.
So
Right. And I think that's what I often see too, right? People sometimes will come with a really great costume that looks awesome,
yeah,
but then they end up like leaving 2/3 of it at the table or at the chair where they're stationed because
yep,
they just can't dance in it, and they're regretting their choice,
yeah.
right? Because they people saw them like when in full costume when they walked in, and like that was it.
Yeah,
Right.
they got their one walkthrough because every Halloween has some sort of parade, right? Like, and a lot of Halloween, even if it's just a normal bar or normal party, they'll have some sort of costume contest where you'll be able to show it off. But then it's time to dance, yeah, right? And then all of a sudden you realize, okay, well, great, that little headdress, awesome, it's gone now. Or you were a cat and you were holding a tail. Well, that tail's now not part of your costume, like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
Hey,
one of the
that
great
brings us. I don't know if you have more to talk about on costumes, but I'd love to hear more about your Spotify playlist because you surprised me with that. I'm very excited about
that's in fact that's what I was just about to transition to very smoothly. Uh, so one of the great things that I love about Halloween is that there's a lot of great Halloween music, like
it.
just in general. Like where I live, Halloween night is a big thing. I get so many kids that come out. Right, we're in a neighborhood, so we get a lot of traffic,
Mm-hmm.
and I usually set up the speakers and I put on a Halloween playlist.
Oh,
Some
that's
of
so
it's
cool.
danceable, some of it's not, but I just have a great time and I set up like the smoke machine and just have a lot of fun with it. But I love the fact that there's a lot of great danceable Halloween music,
Yeah.
right? And some of it is very clearly Halloween music just because of the subject matter. Like if you're actually listening to the lyrics, right, it's like
Mm-hmm.
very uh creepy stuff or whatnot. Some of it is just stuff that sounds like very haunting or spooky, even though the lyrics, if there are lyrics, don't actually delve into anything
Mm-hmm.
particularly scary or relating to goblins or witches or you know
yeah.
pick your your Halloween um, subject. But I threw a bunch of these into a Spotify playlist. We'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Nice.
Um, but I'm wondering, Kelly, do you have any kind of favorite Halloween?
Like I've DJ'd for a long time, and actually I stopped DJing because it's doing so many different things. It's hard to focus and do really dive into the things. And DJing, I think, is really important for people to dive into the music and constantly looking at new tracks and constantly looking, you know what I mean? So I give amazing credit to DJs because that is a skill set that I can do, but I don't do it as well as somebody who really goes after it and it's their life passion. That being said, Halloween, the standards, like the go-to standards, like Monster Mash, or you know what I mean, or it's not necessarily a Halloween song, but the Time Warp, you know what I mean,
Yeah,
like that type of stuff is what comes to my mind, but it's very limited. Like if I have to do a playlist, I'm like, oh crap, like now I'm googling like Halloween songs. So that's why I'm super pumped about your
so
playlist.
like I have like some pretty popular ones are like the Harry Potter
Oh
theme, which
yeah,
is a great Viennese waltz, or
yeah.
um, Season of the Witch, which is like a great West Coast swing.
Hmm.
Um, there's a bunch of this one slow waltz that I think of as a Halloween piece, even though it's not really, but it's just this great haunting kind of sound. It's
Nice.
called the Chairman's Waltz. It's fairly popular at events. I hear it a lot. I wrote down a couple here. Let's see what else. There's things like the old faithful, like Frank Sinatra singing "Witchcraft," right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or there's this kind of more of an East Coast swing type. I think I just love it. It's "I Eat Cannibals," right? If you're or I don't know if you might not know this one, but "Rama Lama Bang Bang." You know that song?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of like a samba. Like I've seen it done as a samba, and I don't strictly, it's not really a Halloween song, but I think there's a line there where the woman's singing like, unzip my body and take out my heart or something like this. Okay, there's a little bit of a creepy Halloween thing going on there. You could perhaps say, but yeah, there's a lot of great stuff. So, as I said, we'll post a link to the Spotify playlist I put together, and hopefully, you'll dig it and enjoy it. But we really like to hear what your favorites are, because I'm sure there's a lot of great things that I didn't think of to put into this playlist. So I'd love to add to it.
Yeah. Where can they send you their submissions? Or
Good question. So you can reach us at info@talk.dance.
Wonderful.
Yes.
I like it. I'm excited because you just surprised me with that as we were talking and as we were about to record. So I haven't even had a chance to check it out. I'm excited to throw it on later and check it out.
Definitely. Hope you like it.
Sweet.
So Kelly,
yes.
While I was kind of browsing through social media the other day, I saw a post from you, and you really surprised me. Kelly put a post on Facebook, and it said, "In honor of Coming Out Day," I'm doing this from memory. I did something kind of different this weekend, and Kelly did a same-sex showcase performance with a friend of yours, whose name I'm forgetting at the moment.
Tommy Redon. He's the owner of Storm Ballroom Dance Center in New Jersey. Actually, I go out there. I teach a lot out there, and when I compete under that.
Okay, and he did an awesome job. You both did an awesome job, and I was floored. And I was floored by two things. One, just the awesome job you did, and I was floored by the fact that you were coming out, or so I thought.
So first, you got to preface this by, I believe that no one should have to struggle unnecessarily. And something as crazy as coming out or not coming out. Like, there's so much bigger things in the world, right? How are you going to hate somebody or be against somebody because of their preference? Like, that, it just doesn't make sense to me. So I've always stood behind, look, you're into guys, you're into girls, you're into whatever, be you. You know what I mean? So we decided to do this, and we're at dinner. It's a funny story. So Tommy is also, even more so than me, very much behind the gay community and the rights and all that other stuff. He backs them all the time. So we're sitting there at dinner, and we were chatting that it's National Come Out Day. And I jokingly said, oh, we should do a same-sex pro number. You know what I mean? Because Showcase was in a couple of hours, and he got really serious, and he goes, hey, we should totally do that. And I was like, I was kidding. And he goes, come on. So here we are at dinner, and it's like medium of the road. I guess you could equate it to maybe like an Olive Garden or maybe a step up of Olive Garden. It's him and I and two of our students. And sure enough, we decided to do this before we even ordered. So we ordered food, and he pulls out his phone, and we start blaring loudly the piece of music that we were going to do. Right. And so I'm like, oh my God, we're going to annoy everyone. And he goes, I don't care. We've got an hour to do this. So we figure it out, we eat, and then we paid the bill, and then we left our students there because we ran across the street to the hotel where the comp was at to practice. So we're like, listen, go ahead, pack up your stuff, do whatever, but we've got to run. So we literally ran across the major highway to get back quickly to the hotel. And in 45 minutes had changed, had edited the song, and had come up with the choreo. And then I thought we had a little bit more time to catch our breath. And he was like, you better get down here. They're holding the comp for us to compete. So it happened all so quickly, but it was a ton of fun, man.
So
It was really cool.
we will definitely put a link to that in the show notes as well,
Yes.
because everyone should check that out. It was really awesome. But one of the things that made this possible, and for some of you might not be aware of this, but it was like just a month, 2 months ago, the National Dance Council of America
Mm-hmm.
had decided for the first time to change the rules to allow same-sex couples to dance. So it used to be that in any kind of um, NDCA competition, there were very strict rules, right?
Yeah. Very.
Only a couple had to be a man and a woman, and the leader had to be the man,
Yep. And the
right?
follower had to be the woman. There
Followers
was
had to be a
no,
woman.
you couldn't switch. You could not have a female leader and you could not have a male follower. Like it was very, very strict on those rules.
Right, right. So I think the NDCA decided to move into, I'm going to jokingly say, the second half of the 20th century, let alone the 21st century. But hey, look, I applaud them for making this change as late as it was.
You get it
Well
just
done, right?
it goes to show you that it's normal, right? It's something we've all been accepting now for years. And some places still don't accept it because they're like, it's a fad that's going away. It's not a fad, right? It is the next thing. It is something we should all accept because it's gonna be around forever.
Yeah,
This
you know, the rules as they were prior to this change would have been, I think, considered completely unacceptable in any other aspect of our life, right? If you went
Yep.
into any workplace
Yeah.
or uh, a place of business, and you were, went to a restaurant and you were told you can't
Oh,
sit with
yeah.
someone because they're the same sex or something,
Immediate. Yeah,
no
immediately.
one would accept that. That'd be ridiculous, right?
Yep.
Um, and so that was a change that was recently made. As I said, I applaud that change. I think we both do. And it was because of that change that you were in fact able to do this in recognition of coming out.
Yes. Yeah, and I
As,
believe someone told me this, and I didn't do the research, so I don't know if this is true. So if this is not true, don't slam me, just educate me. But I believe Tommy and I were the very first same-sex pro show dance couple to compete under the new rule.
nice.
So, and actually, we had so much fun with it. We only did like a minute and a half because we slammed it together really quickly. But I'm just finishing up a longer edit, and we're actually going to take it and compete with it throughout the year as solidarity for all the people who've struggled gaining these rights, and now they have them. So we want to be like, we're behind you.
Right.
Fun little factoid about this: there's been same-sex competitions for years, right? But they're different. And actually, I talked about this on my show, that dance show, that the independent, so to speak, competitions change roles in the middle of the dance, right? So you have same-sex couples, but they change lead and follow throughout that round of dance, and they change it multiple times. The reason I'm bringing this up is we were the first ones to do pro show dance, but the next night there was two males that competed same-sex in rhythm and in smooth.
Mm.
And it was really cool to watch. Like they were really, really good. And they made finals. I will say this though, I think switching roles is a unique skill set, but I don't know how you judge that against people who don't switch roles. It has nothing to do with sex, right? But I think it's hard to judge apples and oranges like that. So I think you should do a whole new category of switch roles, right?
Mm.
In NDCA. So if you're going to compete in NDCA, be a same sex, but switching roles against people who aren't switching roles, it's just not fair either way. Not for or against or whatever, right? I think they should have a new category of role switching. So this way now, it doesn't have to be same sex. It could be a hetero or it could be guy girl, whatever. And then next thing you know, you're switching and now you're watching the female lead, right? Like
Right.
I think
I
there's a
did
lot of
hear that at least in some of the same sex competitions, they do this role switching
Yeah.
as well, and I don't think they do that in all of them, but yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'd love for us to, in fact, have an episode on that. A good
Yeah.
friend of mine starred in the documentary Hot to Trot, which was all about the world of
Yeah, that's right.
same-sex competition. So we should definitely come back and do that. That'd be really, really cool. But yeah, you know, when you posted that on Facebook, honestly, I think uh, maybe the original post you didn't specify. I thought, oh, okay, I learned something new about Kelly. I didn't know that Kelly was gay, but fine, that's cool. Um, and then I think you clarified that you weren't coming out; you were just doing this as an homage
Yeah,
to
in
to
solidarity. And you know what?
everyone
I
who.
had to throw an edit on that because I had gotten just overrun with messages. Like just most of them were very congratulatory. And the ones that weren't congratulatory were my friends who knew that I did it in solidarity. So they were poking fun at me, you know what I mean? Just me personally. You always rib your friends, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But it got to the point where I had to change it. I had to edit the post and say, I totally believe in people who are coming out, but I myself, neither me nor Tommy are coming out. Like I had to stop the messages I was getting. Like I even had an ex-girlfriend that I was very serious with and I competed with years ago message me, be like, "Hey, I didn't know you were coming out." And I was like, "How did you even hear about this?" So, yeah, it's funny.
right, right. Yeah. So again, Kelly, I just want to say well done. I thought that was so cool that you did that, and I know you and Tommy did it kind of very last minute, as you described to me, right? You threw it
Hmm.
together in a short amount of time, and I thought it was a great performance, especially given that was like really awesome. But I just even more, I just love the idea of it, uh,
Yeah,
and that
yeah,
that
I'm very
change that
excited.
makes it possible.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have done it, and I'm super excited to keep it going and to take it further. And so that way, it's not just a slapstick moment. Like it was, like it came up as last minute, but our hearts are behind that movement so much that I want to take this and compete with it just to show solidarity throughout the year. So it'll be fun, man. I'm excited to do more with this.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. That sounds really great. So, a little bit earlier before the show, I can't remember how we got on this topic, but Kelly, you and I were talking about rumba.
Mm, mm,
And, you know, there's the international style rumba,
mm-hmm,
and there's the American rhythm style of rumba.
mm-hmm.
And even within American rhythm, there are two different ways in which the rumba is taught,
Yes.
right? And I think you might tend to use a different version than I tend to use. So
You
I
know,
think both of us will probably
I,
could do either, but I
I think yes,
I
I think
default one way. I think you default the other way.
I agree, and I totally know why. But yes, I would agree. I think you and I both start it differently, right?
Yes. So
Uh,
tell me, Kelly, how do you do a basic rumba step?
so it's box rhythm, right? So I've always been taught you do it slow, quick, slow, quick, right? And you start with your lead leg, and that's how you make the box.
And the slow is stepping forward.
The slow is stepping forward, correct?
Right.
Or for
So
the lead, sorry. The lead
yes,
steps forward,
for
the
the lead.
follower steps back, and so on and so
Right. Good point. So I also dance the rumba with the slow stepping forward, but I I correctly proceed that with a quick as the lead stepping to the left. I'm joking. Either is fine, but there
I
is a
love
bit
it.
of difference, and I think it all comes down to, for most people, their preference is probably how they were originally taught.
I agree because I was originally taught through one of the two powerhouses that caused the feud. Uh,
Right.
let's talk about that. Why is it like that? Right.
Yes. So in the United States, there are two major dance franchises that own many studios, and one is Arthur Murray, and
Hmm.
one is Fred Astaire.
And not to take any away from either one, they're actually globally recognized.
They
Like
are globally
just the
recognized.
United
That's
States.
true.
Yes,
Yes,
yes, yes.
yes. Even they started in the U.S. and they have
Yes.
a large presence in this country, but they both have a presence beyond the United States as well.
Mhm.
And so Arthur Murray
Mhm.
teaches the rumba the way that Kelly
Yep.
likes to dance it,
And we
right?
start with
Starting on slow, stepping
slow.
forward as the leader and stepping
Mhm.
back as the follower. And for the Fred Astaire school, they uh, decided that they'd like to teach it starting with a quick, stepping to the right as the follower or the left as the leader.
Mhm.
And aside from that, it's exactly the same. All the steps you can do are exactly the same,
Exactly
because
the same.
whether you start the bar with a quick, or you start the bar with the slow.
Yep.
Now, this might be just because I've danced it with I didn't learn in either one of the franchises, but I I learned American rumba from um, originally someone who was national nine dance champion, and he taught the Fred Astaire style, I guess you could say, at least in terms of the rumba, right? That you
Mhm.
quick to the side. Even though I've tried both, I find it's easier to lead the start. Now you're on the floor and you're
Mhm.
listening to the music, and okay, it's time to go, to just settle into your hip and go to the left, to not have this kind of this moment of, especially as if your follower is a beginner, where you're kind of like stepping and
Right.
running into her.
Right.
But how do you feel about it, Kelly? Because obviously
You know,
you're experiencing that.
it's,
And
I'll say this. I think in general, and I've had this thought long before, because I was with Murray's for eight or more years, right? And I was with Murray's as a professional for a long time. But before Murray's, I was independent for 8 or so years, and I've been independent after Murray's now for about 4 or 5 or whatever years. So I've always thought, before I learned the pattern or learned each dance, I've always known as a social dancer, momentum that's moving is easier to manipulate than momentum that's stationary, right? Dynamic energy is easier to manipulate than static energy. So even before I start any dance, I'm always shifting weight anyway, right? So I guess technically, if you really wanted to say that, I guess on the 7/8, it probably looks like I go side together, quick to go slow again. But I'm not doing that. I'm just shifting my weight and getting my partner to shift the weight, because once their lead leg is free, I go forward and it's easy. It's just as easy for me to go forward as it is to go side, because I've already got their momentum moving. The
right.
only reason I go forward is that's just what I was trained. I don't, you know what I mean? In fact, teaching a lot at Storm Ballroom now, he was both Murray's and Fred's, but he was Fred's for a long time, so he does to the side. So when I teach in his studio and I teach his competition students, I have to go side, because it's just easier for me to switch than to get them to switch.
Right. So
So
this is interesting, and I was reading online. In fact, some professionals who've taught at both and have switched, and sometimes they find it very hard, and
yeah,
it's important that they switch, because if you compete in one of the franchise competitions, you will be penalized for doing a quick slow at a Arthur Murray competition, and you will be penalized for doing slow quick at a Fred Astaire competition. If you're at an independent competition, most of the big competitions are independent of those franchise. You can do either, and both are fine.
yeah, they
Uh,
don't really care.
our podcast, we tend to be focused on social dancing. I have seen people on a social dance floor who are just maybe sometimes ignorant, and they will tell their partner that they're doing it wrong, right?
Oh, oh,
Uh,
dude, I hate that. I absolutely hate that. I'm gonna right now. I'm very open to many things. I'm gonna put my foot down. Like, don't ever do that. There's no reason to ever do that. That drives me nuts.
just don't put your foot down on your partner's foot.
Yeah, right. Oh man.
Yes,
Yeah, no, I don't.
yeah, I mean,
Uh,
they because sometimes they only know what they've been taught, and someone is
yep.
coming to the dance doing something different, and they assume it is wrong. It's not
Yes.
wrong. It's just different, and both are
Yes.
acceptable.
Both are acceptable, right? Being at Murray's for so many years, I went to many dance-a-ramas, as they call them, right? Many competitions, and I never saw anyone who started with quick, quick. I just always knew that that was Fred's way, right? So I never saw anyone get penalized, but it was so indoctrinated that I never ever saw anyone go quick, quick first. Even the professionals, right, who would do once you get a certain level in Murray's, you're allowed to compete independently, right, as a professional. But even the professionals, they would always start with the correct slow or whatever according to Murray's, right? I'm not saying correct altogether, but they would adjust for the competitions they're at. And since the independent doesn't really care, they never ever had to start with quicks. You know what I mean? And I'm assuming it's probably the same for Fred's, right? If you go to a Fred's comp, you're starting with the quicks, and the independent doesn't care, so you're probably always going to start with the quicks.
Right.
Just like you said, it doesn't matter to me. I really don't care. So long as you're moving on the same beat I'm moving on, I don't care. Let's just stand there and shake our butts. Whatever, man.
Now, if you're wondering, uh, where does international style rumba come down? On which side of this debate? The answer is neither.
I know, right? It doesn't make any sense, but it's true. Totally
It is.
true.
It is true. So international style is in this country is danced a little bit less frequently in social dance venues, but it starts with a slow that begins on the fourth beat of the bar.
For all of
And
you
and
dance,
and it, but it's not a slow stepping forward. It's a slow to the side, to the right for the leader, and then
yep.
a quick, and then a breaking forward for the leader.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's yet another way of dancing the
Uh,
rumba. International rumba tends to be slower than American style rumba. So what you would dance an international rumba, that this you typically would do something like a bolero in the American style. But
yep.
yeah, it's it's neither of the above for international style rumba.
It just goes to show you, man, like there's so many different, I look at dance like the English language. First of all, American speaking English versus the United Kingdom versus British speaking English. Those are both English. Great. Now you go to Australia, that's also English. You know what I mean? But I mean, that's different regions. If you look in the US alone, you got the New York accent versus the Midwest. Don't go down south, you won't understand what anyone's saying. And then you got the California accent. Like there's so many different dialects of English just in the US alone. So it boggles my mind that people get so set that there's only one way to do rumba. Like, dude, in this country alone, there's at least 4 different ways people speak English. You know what I mean? Like different dialects and different intonations and whatnot. So why wouldn't there be more styles of rumba? You know?
So I'm originally from Canada. I grew up in Canada, and
Oh,
I'm
no
trying
wonder
to
you're
learn
so nice.
I'm trying to learn everything about dance from A to Z. Um, which
You probably talk kilometers and meters and all that stuff.
yes,
I love
yes,
it.
yes.
Oh, that's excellent, man.
I'm trying to learn it from A to Z, and Kelly's trying to learn it from A to Z.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's totally true, right? That's excellent. Oh, so
Yes.
good.
So anyway, that's probably about all we want to cover today about rumba.
About the Roomba, yes. Yes, it's yes.
So Kelly, what else is happening in your life?
Lots of stuff happening. I'm doing a regular weekly show. You can catch it on Evolution Pop on Facebook, that dance show.
Yeah, tell us quickly, how did you get started with that? What's that about?
So I went to school for radio and for production, for TV and film production. It's always something I've always just liked. Even as a kid, I used to love listening to like radio announcers, right? And I used to love listening to radio shows to where you really had to use your imagination, right? Like the old, like I wasn't alive when War of the Worlds happened, but that type of thing where it was radio, where it was like they had sound effects, they had like, you know, studios just for sounds. And like, I just love that. And I just love all the production in any production, in TV production and film. So I thought, well, you know, the only thing stopping me is me. So I went back to school. Well, when I went back to school, I had already had many years of announcing under my belt, so of doing emceeing and stuff like that. So they're like, hey, here, do some talk-ups for the assignment. And then they were like, hey, you know, that's great. Do you want to try a show? And I was like, I've been here a month, so of course that sounds wonderful. So they put me on the school's air, and I've been doing it on and off ever since for like a year now. So it's
Nice.
really cool. I get to talk about all things dance, not just partner dance. Like we're talking a lot about social partner dancing, but I talk about modern dance. I talk about exercises. I just talk about anything dance that comes across. A new segment I just introduced is Dancing in the Wild. I love it, where you're not expecting dance to happen, but it happens, right? One example that I used was there's a new TV show called Hustle and Flow, and it's about rappers, and it's a reality show about rappers trying to beat each other and then be at the top and then become a star, right? Well, T.I., a famous rapper, was talking to one of the rappers about like, you got to have choreography. And then it breaks down why dance choreography, specifically dance choreography, is important and how it lets you know to go from one step to another, and it builds your future. And I just like, that blew me away, that here a gangster rapper is telling somebody else why dance, specifically dance choreography, is so important. And I was like, that's just so cool. So we just do all kinds of stuff like that.
Nice, nice. So that's a radio show. It's not a podcast, but I know it's available on Facebook. So
It is available on Facebook. Mm-hmm.
We will put a link to that in the show notes as well, so you can check that out.
Yeah, that'd be so cool. Eventually, I want to talk about some more etiquette. I don't know if we have time to do that today or if we want to add that for the next one, but you and I were chatting about some floor craft ideas. So,
oh, I love this topic.
Yeah, this is a really important topic.
Yeah, I think we should definitely talk about this on our next episode, because I see a lot of people who need to be educated on the topic of floor craft, as I did for a long time, until I finally learned about, you know, the rules of the road, right?
Yeah, I agree. I didn't know myself until I was told. And then, you know, and then once I know, I'm like, okay, it's one of those things, like once you know, you can never go back to not knowing. Like, even if you're at a wedding to where there's no line of dance, you're still like in the back of your head, you're like, come on, pay attention to the room, people. Like, yeah, it's great.
Indeed.
It's wonderful.
Yes. Okay. Well, Kelly, this has been a blast. Thanks everyone for joining. If you want to find out more about our podcast, you can find us at Talk.dance. That's the URL. It's that simple. If you want to reach out to us and give us some feedback, suggest some new topics for our show, we're really, really interested in hearing what you'd like us to talk about. How can they find out about us, Kelly?
They can find out about us if they go to Talk.dance, right?
That's the website, and our email is info@talk.dance.
That's right. I love it. This has been awesome. All right, everybody. Stay safe. Continue dancing.
Keep dancing. Yeah. Cheers.